Pentecostal Church of Chile has created a unique center where people, surrounded by the beauty of the Andes Mountains, can regather with God, themselves, others, and creation to promote processes of healing and growth for individuals and groups through experimental learning. At the Shalom Center, we have a very specific mission in all of our activities. Our mission is to form stewards through healing and education who, as agents of God's Shalom, are committed to transforming, caring for, and respecting the relationships between God and each human being of every person with him or herself, between people, and with all of creation. We at the Shalom Center believe in healing of the person in mind, body, and spirit, healing of the community, and healing of the earth. There are so many ways in which the Shalom Center promotes the healing of the earth. The Shalom Center is a place of education about the healing of the environment and the steps we can take to facilitate this. We request that the participants only walk on the designated path so that the nature around will remain undisturbed. We are very serious about limiting the waste that our camp produces and keeping it clean. We compost all biodegradable leftovers. And we also recycle all papers, plastic bottles, and cans. One of the main commitments that we have here at the Shalom Center is to keep the environment clean. We always pick up the trash found around our property, even if it is not ours. We only use electricity when absolutely necessary, as our form of electricity isn't clean. It's a generator. The generator is not as clean or as easy as most people view electricity. Usually, people can just flip a switch and see the lights turn on. For us at the Shalom Center, there is a process for which to get electricity. We keep our generator in a shed with other tools. Before starting the generator, it must be filled with diesel fuel. One of the reasons that we hesitate to use the generator is because the burning of the diesel pollutes the atmosphere, as well as transporting the diesel to the Shalom Center also pollutes the atmosphere. After filling the tank with diesel fuel, you need to start the generator, similar to how you would start a lawnmower. After starting the generator, the entire house has electricity. But, unfortunately, the noise is pretty obviously annoying and disturbing to the creatures in the surrounding wilderness. For this reason, we searched for an alternative method for power. In our search, we discovered a form of energy called hydroelectric micropower stations. These are energy systems that are useful for renewable energy on small to mid-level scales. These power sources use water movement to provide electricity. The water needs to have a certain height and amount in order to turn the turbine that provides electricity. The water must have at least a height of between 2 and 200 meters, and a water flow of 0.5 liters to 3,000 liters per second. The amount of electricity you get out of the hydroelectric plant is proportional to the combination of height and the quantity of water. It can produce as little as 0.5 kilowatts to run a food processor, or 150 kilowatts, enough to power 15 houses with air conditioners. A company called Microwatt produces hydroelectric micropower stations from a family home in Argentina. Microwatt produces a special type of these power stations so that the flow of water is monitored by a computer. With the computer, the power that is produced can be controlled, so there is no excess voltage and none is wasted. This is an example of a hydroelectric micropower station just outside of San Carlos de Bariloche, Argentina. The source of water is a spring that is 1 kilometer elevation above the power plant. The water is then funneled through a tube all the way from the source down to the machine house. The extra water is pushed up through this tube so that there will be no extra air so that the pipes are completely full of water. The tube keeps the water from meeting much resistance so it can flow faster with more efficiency. The water flows in the tube to the machine house, where it goes through the computer-controlled piece that determines the flow rate. If a light turns on in the house, then the computer will recognize that more electricity is needed, and it will increase the flow and thus the amount of electricity that is produced. The water goes through the piping, turns out the turbine, and thus producing the electricity. The water then flows out the other side of the machine house as a stream. As you can see, this has minimal effect on the environment. The site at which we hope to install one of the hydroelectric micro power stations is in this mountain and higher up on this river. The water movement produced by this flowing water could help us bring electricity without polluting the environment to our camp. This is where the generator would be, where the water flows underground. We could bring the water down in a tube from the site of the source, which gives 2.5 liters per second at the minimum of the year. We hope to produce enough electricity to power the refrigerators. This is our vision. Isn't that silence lovely?